Ukraine just sent shockwaves through Russia's military map, and it may have cost Moscow over $500 million. For centuries, Russia's rivers, canals, and lakes have been its hidden arteries of power. They cut through remote towns that most outsiders couldn't place on a map. Those waterways gave Moscow confidence. Even when war flared far away, the heartland felt untouchable. Yesterday, that confidence cracked. At 4:31 a.m., Ukraine struck deep inside Russian territory, hitting a Boyan M-class corvette Grad as it moved across Lake Onega, roughly 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine's border. Far from trenches or coastal batteries, a place assumed safe was suddenly within reach. This was not random, and the Grad was no ordinary patrol boat. It carried 8 caliber cruise missiles, an automatic 100mm gun, and a small air defense suite. Those calibers can reach up to 2,500 kilometers and can carry conventional or nuclear warheads, making the ship a high-value target. Built in December 2022, the Grad was designed to slip along inland waterways, transiting from the Baltic to the Caspian, while hiding from satellites and NATO watchers. In short, one of Russia's more flexible and discreet tools for projecting power. At the time of the strike, GRA was on such a transit, likely relocating for deployment, concealment, or maintenance. Analysts suspected the ship was moved from the Black Sea to avoid escalating risks, relocating to what was considered a low-risk transit corridor. Ironically, after surviving the hazardous sea, it was struck in this supposed safe zone. Ukraine's Special Operations Group reported the strike hit the power unit compartment, disabling the ship's propulsion. Emergency teams responded to the immobilized vessel, a fact confirmed by satellite imagery and open-source tracking, prompting a rapid tightening of security across the northern waterways. The strike's message was clear. Geography no longer guaranteed safety, and previously untouchable canals and rivers were now vulnerable. Videos from the Lake Onega area circulated quickly. Initial Russian coverage framed it as a technical malfunction. Satellite tracking and Ukrainian statements confirmed the missile ship Grad was hit and disabled. The embarrassment became hard to deny, try as censors might. Within 2 days, it struck the Kirishi Oil Refinery, southeast of St. Petersburg. That facility is one of Russia's largest, a major facility frequently cited as 6 to 7% of national refining capacity. Drones sparked fires in processing units and knocked parts of the power system offline. Crews contained fires, but the plant had to pause. Even a temporary shutdown hits fuel chains hard. The effects lined up like gears. Hitting the Grad in Lake Onega and bombing the Kirishi refinery didn't just damage 2 targets, they disrupted how Russia moves fuel and cargo through its northern waterways. Lake Onega connects to the Volga-Baltic waterway, feeding the St. Petersburg canal system, one of Russia's key international shipping routes. After the attack, traffic paused, security tightened, movement slowed, inspections piled up. At the same time, the Kirishi refinery went down. That plant supplies fuel for vessels and support crews across the region. Without it, tugboats and cargo barges couldn't run normally. Fuel shortages create delays, and delays cause rerouting. The canal network depends on a precise rhythm, safe passage, steady fuel, reliable timing. Shake one piece, the rest shudders. Barges stalled, schedules slid. The final stretch of inland routes towards the Baltic slipped out of sync. Satellite imagery confirmed the waterways were empty, compelling civilian shippers to find new routes and causing insurance rates to surge. Russia's crucial inland artery, used for transporting fuel, timber, and military equipment, suddenly appeared far less reliable. OSINT confirmed slowdowns near St. Petersburg, impacting the Neva River, Ladoga Canal, and associated locks, ultimately causing the final passage to fail. This incident exposed the system's profound fragility, revealing how a single event could break the entire logistical rhythm. This waterway's significance is historical and strategic. The 227-kilometer White Sea-Baltic Canal, built by Gulag prisoners in the 1930s at the cost of thousands of lives, connects Arctic ports like Murmansk to St. Petersburg. It then links to the Volga River system, providing access to the Caspian, Black, and Azov seas. As part of the larger Volga-Baltic waterway, It moves oil and cargo from the Baltic deep into the interior, supporting both commercial and military operations, so a disruption in one area affects the entire network. For the Navy, that network has been a hidden advantage. Small missile ships like the Grad were built for it. They carry big weapons while fitting narrow locks and shallow lakes. Internal waters let Russia shift hulls between fleets without crossing hostile seas. Moscow calls that strategic depth, the idea that geography shields the core. That illusion dissolved when the Grad exploded. Trade makes the canal's importance even clearer. Primorsk, northwest of St. Petersburg, is a major export terminal, handling over 230 million barrels of oil and refined fuels each year, much destined for Europe. Ust-Luga, 110 kilometers west, adds millions of tons of coal, fuels, and containers. Both plug into the canal network. Disrupt the canal, shipments slow, exports stall, and northern supply routes fray. Even short closures ripple through deliveries across regions. The canal offers significant redundancy, compensating for disruptions at southern ports like Novorossiysk, whether from sanctions, blockades, or attacks. Its proximity to NATO countries, Finland, and the Baltic makes it a highly sensitive artery. The route also provides a concealed path for Northern Fleet submarines to bypass heavily monitored waters near Norway and the United Kingdom. Consequently, any interruption to this corridor directly impedes Russia's ability to discreetly move strategic nuclear assets. Russia's long-held view of this interior as safe encouraged heavy reliance on it for both civilian cargo and military movements. The canal is a backbone for naval power, especially for the Arctic, linking St. Petersburg shipyards to bases like Murmansk and Severodvinsk. These yards produce critical components, such as radar sets and missile parts for Northern Fleet vessels. Hitting this protected corridor jams the Navy's supply chain, slowing equipment timelines and complicating fleet refits. Moscow has wagered on the Arctic, selling the Northern Sea route as a future energy and trade jackpot. But those dreams rely on steady inputs from Baltic shipyards. This October strike showed that even 1,000 kilometers away, a well-placed drone can splash cold reality on those plains. Russia's vast geography, from the European core to the icy north, doesn't shield like it used to. Russia has long framed its northern interior as an untouchable sanctuary, far from the conflict zone. The drone strike on a defense-linked ship near St. Petersburg, a city of symbolic importance, shatters that narrative. This proximity rattles the elites, making their implicit deal of safety in exchange for quiet support feel fragile. If a ship near St. Petersburg is vulnerable, it raises doubts about what else is within reach. This event challenges Russia's deep-rooted faith in its vastness, a strategy that historically defeated invaders like Napoleon and Hitler. Drones invert that logic. Distance matters less against small, precise systems than it did against traditional armies. Analysts indicate the canal shutdown signifies a collapse of movement, trade, and confidence, not just a single broken lock. Ukraine exposed a structural weakness, proving that hitting key infrastructure can tilt the balance without a classic battle. This success relied on layered planning, technology, intelligence, and timing, using a toolkit of adaptable long-range drones and coordinated forces. While drones are the headline, intelligence, a blend of satellites, intercepts, and open sources, assisted by partners, drove the strike. Ukraine, handling the targeting, waited for the opportune moment, striking the ship in Lake Onega, the canal's widest and most exposed stretch, after likely tracking it for weeks. There's another layer: people on the ground. Ukraine has built networks inside Russia, sympathizers, informants, and saboteurs. They provide proximity that satellites can't. A local launch site shortens the range. Some argue the strike looked too precise for a lone long-range drone. Operating inside Russia is risky. Cells keep small footprints, move fast, strike, and fade. Paired with long-range drones, they extend reach and blur attribution. Defenders can't always tell where the attack originated or who enabled it. For Russia's navy, inland transits now look riskier. Commanders will rethink routes, timings, and escorts, or skip inland shortcuts entirely. That cuts flexibility when shifting hulls between fleets. For crews and port workers, confidence erodes. Hesitation spreads faster than repairs. In wartime, hesitation has value. For Ukraine, this operation proved that deep strikes are a game changer. A successful hit near St. Petersburg demonstrates a capability to threaten fuel depots, repair yards, and missile stockpiles far from the front. This forces Russia to stretch its defenses, turning geography into a burden and exposing infrastructure like dams and critical bridges. This damage was compounded by an information gap, as official silence allowed doubt to grow. This follows a systematic pattern of strikes over the past year. Incidents include the drone attack on the Tuapse terminal, the strike on Engels Air Base damaging at least two Tu-95s, and coordinated attacks in Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk that hit ammo and fuel. The strategy is to constantly pressure targets that hold economic, military, and symbolic value. At home, despite tightened censorship, information leaked. September polls showed support for continued offensives slipping, with more Russians preferring negotiations. Social posts questioned how air defenses near St. Petersburg could fail. Meanwhile, daily life is strained. Official inflation is above 8%, but felt inflation for essentials is higher due to sanctions. Wages lag as costs for heating and food rise. Labor shifts to military factories also create civilian shortages, squeezing families who increasingly connect this hardship to the long war. Strategically, this strike was different. It hit sovereign Russian territory far from combat zones, while donors like the US restrict the use of their long-range systems inside Russia. Ukraine can bypass this. Using homegrown drones and precise planning, Kyiv appears willing to use this loophole. Each deep strike tweaks the geopolitical thermostat. Moscow accuses NATO of enabling attacks even without Western munitions. That narrative offers cover for retaliation or cyber moves. It's a built-in risk for every Ukrainian success. There's also precedent setting. If Ukraine can strike inside Russia with international backing and limited backlash, other tense regions take note. Taiwan, Iran, and North Korea watch closely. The unspoken lesson isn't only ingenuity, it's that intelligence, technology, and non-state help can project power across borders. By targeting only military and logistical nodes, Ukraine walks a careful line. It avoids civilians and has not used NATO hardware on Russian cities, which is key to Allied support. The deeper the strikes, the higher the risk, but Ukraine is proving a point to its partners. It can conduct a high-risk campaign controllably. Its results have supported this assertion. This campaign extends to Russia's oil industry. At least 15 major refineries have been struck since early 2025, targeting core units that are hard to replace due to sanctions. This has cut refinery output by over 500,000 barrels a day in the past 2 months. The Kirishi plant alone saw an output drop of about 20%. With over 40 strikes in September, fuel exports are at their lowest since early 2022, creating military bottlenecks and pushing up domestic fuel prices. This is a cost-effective strategy. Ukraine's low-cost drones contrast with Russia's expensive repairs. Independent estimates suggest the combined cost of the Lake Onega strike and the Kirishi refinery damage could exceed $500 million in direct losses from destroyed equipment, halted production, and shipping delays across the Volga-Baltic corridor. Air defenses designed for jets struggle with small, low-flying drones. In response, Russia has been forced to reposition mobile radars and patrols to key sites, thinning its coverage elsewhere. If this pressure continues, refining capacity could stay depressed through winter, when heating fuel demand peaks, further straining the economy. This is a deliberate effort to make fuel networks unreliable. Internationally, the strikes demonstrate that Western aid and intelligence are effective. This capability to hit high-value targets may boost partner confidence and open doors for more funding. Ripples also reach Asia, particularly China and India, who rely on discounted Russian crude. Persistent disruptions to refineries and waterways complicate Russia's reliability as a supplier, adding delays and insurance friction that these buyers want to avoid. In the long term, Russia's inland traffic will likely remain slower, stretching planning cycles and shrinking operational flexibility. Ukraine has demonstrated that strategic effects, once reserved for major offensives, can be achieved with low-cost tools and careful planning. Brainpower beating firepower. The St. Petersburg operation achieved three things: real economic disruption through logistical delays, a hit to military and civilian confidence, and a geopolitical signal that Ukraine is an agile, creative actor shaping events far from the front. The larger lesson is that modern war is about timings, precision, and exploiting an opponent's brittleness. By combining intelligence, technology, and surprise, Ukraine is forcing a larger adversary into a state of constant reaction. For Russia, the warning is stark. Geography is no longer a shield. Distance no longer guarantees safety. Every canal, every shipyard, every quiet industrial corridor can be next. Ukraine has shown that deep behind the front lines, nothing is off limits. The St. Petersburg Canal strike was a message underscored by an inland precision strike. In modern warfare, control is measured less by territory and more by initiative. Ukraine currently holds that initiative. The question now is whether Russia can take it back, or whether this new map of vulnerability is here to stay.